You are listening to Effective Communication Skills for Beginners. Habits and Exercises for Enhancing Your Communication and Social Intelligence. Written by Lulu Cunningham. Published by Audiobook Nexus.
Introduction. What is the purpose of this book? Have you ever struggled to come up with anything fascinating to say, pondered how to make new acquaintances, or experienced social anxiety? You're not alone. Millions of other individuals are in your shoes. Heck, I used to have the same issues. I can now converse with practically anybody and manage ordinary social settings with ease. However, it was a long and difficult voyage until I arrived at my objective. There's no denying that communication skills are essential for success. If you want to enhance your love relationships, strengthen your family connections, strengthen your friendships, or advance in your work, you must first improve your communication skills. Communication should be easy, so why do we struggle with it? All of humanity's development may be attributed to communication. Consider this. We couldn't have produced the first tools, raised families, established communities, or formed governments if we couldn't communicate properly. We need these essential talents in order to create connections, communicate ideas, and spend time with family and friends. Unfortunately, our life experiences often get in the way, and we lose touch with our innate skills. If you are tormented at school, for example, you may come to feel that you are an inherently unpopular person who will never make friends. It stands to reason that your social ties would suffer as a result of this predicament. Personally, I grew up in a high-achieving household. As a consequence, I often felt as though any suggestions I presented would be met with criticism. My mother describes me as a confident preschooler, but by the age of 7, I'd grown bashful. My adventure. During my early 20s, I realized how important communication skills are for everyone who wishes to live a happy, balanced life. I had a few nice friends and dated a few women as a young adult, but I didn't feel particularly connected to anybody. Sure, I could chat to my pals and keep my girls engaged, but there was something lacking. I'd see other people at parties, in class, and in clubs, laughing and conversing without a care in the world. They appeared to enjoy making small chat. Because communication didn't come easy to me, I assumed I was doing something wrong. When I got my first job out of college, the same old difficulties arose. People didn't dislike me, but I was always a little remote. I was quite shy, often second-guessing myself in conversation, and uncertain how to approach individuals I wanted to get to know more. I felt terrible for myself for a time. I thought that some individuals are born to be excellent communicators and that practicing social skills is meaningless if you don't have a natural flair for communication. Now that I think about it, I had a lot to learn. As I observed, regardless of your age or experience, you can absolutely develop your talents in this area. My desire for personal improvement quickly led me down a fascinating road in which I learned a great deal about human psychology and communication. Self-help books, scholarly literature, research papers, and seminars became addictions for me. This introduction does not have enough room to provide a list of my favorite writers and communication professionals. I'm pleased to announce that I'm now a published author, having produced numerous books on communication skills, social intelligence, and other facets of self-improvement. So far, I've assisted hundreds of individuals in improving their relationships and launching their professions, and I have the testimonials to prove it, making the transition from reading to action. All of your self-development efforts will be futile unless you are willing to put what you've learned into action. It takes a long time to find the correct information, analyze it, and try out new ways. At the outset of my personal journey, I urgently sought a book that had short yet effective communication exercises based on strong psychological research. Unfortunately, I was unable to locate one. Over a decade later, I've written the book I wished for as a young man, and you're holding it in your hands. My goal is to assist individuals in swiftly developing their talents without having to spend numerous hours reading through hundreds of resources. How to make use of this book. This book offers 21 communication themes, as well as specific activities that will completely remodel your present abilities. The concepts in this book apply to everyone, whether you are naturally shy, inherently outgoing, or somewhere in the center. I won't overwhelm you with new knowledge, but I will offer just enough to have a beneficial influence on your social life in a short period of time. You've undoubtedly heard the adage, it takes 21 days to create a new habit. It should come as no surprise that I drew inspiration for the title of my book from this common adage. However, I must acknowledge that 21 is not a magical number. Contrary to common belief, the time it takes to acquire a new habit ranges from 18 to 254 days. That's the terrible news. But there's also some good news. This 21-day challenge is an excellent place to start for anybody looking to improve their communication abilities. You won't be able to form a whole new set of habits in 21 days, but you will notice a significant change, as will your friends, family, and colleagues. The book is intended to be utilized over a 21-day period, although I understand that life does not always go as planned. Your schedule may prevent you from doing the exercises in the correct sequence. That's okay, just do your best. I've designed it so that you may adjust the order if necessary. Caution is advised. Before we begin, I'd want to finish my introduction with a couple of warnings. First and foremost, these obstacles are just that. Challenges. They are not simple. To be honest, they've been specifically created to push you beyond of your comfort zone. Prepare to put in a lot of effort because the benefits will be well worth it. Communication is similar to any other talent in that the more you practice it, the better you will become. On a lighter side, I'd like to warn you that honing and enhancing your communication abilities may be addicting when you start paying closer attention to how individuals interact with one another on a daily basis. You'll notice that some patterns repeat themselves. I've been interested in human interactions for almost 10 years, and there's still so much I want to learn. I hope you have a similar response to this book. Day 1. Listen, before you even consider your comments to others, you should work on your listening abilities. Have you ever had a discussion with someone whose body was there but not their mind? Isn't it frustrating? Poor communicators believe that listening is just waiting their time to speak while mentally formulating their answer. This is a serious blunder. Listening is so much more than that. It's a method of giving someone else the opportunity to express their thoughts and ideas, to establish emotional connection, and to demonstrate empathy. Today, you'll discover the fundamentals of outstanding listening, followed by an activity that will help you to put these suggestions into practice. Listening is more than just providing someone the opportunity to express themselves verbally. While this is significant in and of itself, listening is also the first step toward personal transformation. Carl Rogers, one of the 20th century's most famous psychologists, observed that when we are given the opportunity to speak about what has occurred to us and how we feel about it, we begin to recognize the best approach to modify our beliefs and actions. While seeking counsel from others may be beneficial, we are more likely to change for the better if we work through our difficulties on our own. One of the most efficient methods to do this is to be able to speak freely to an understanding audience. Hold your tongue and allow your discussion partner the space they need if they ramble, if their ideas don't appear to make sense. Before adopting a strategy, they may wish to consult with multiple other individuals, or they may need to digest the situation on their own time. Try not to get irritated. Extend the same patience to others that you would want to receive in return. Top listening strategies to help you become a better listener. 1. Use non-intrusive verbal and nonverbal cues to urge them to continue talking, nodding, and saying, and I see are brief, unobtrusive cues that promote additional disclosure. Silence is sometimes okay. Sometimes someone needs a few seconds to arrange their thoughts before resuming the talk. Allow them some breathing room. 2. Allow them to continue until they run out of steam. When I learned to listen correctly, I was astounded to realize that many individuals badly want someone to slow down and listen to what they have to say. This is particularly true if they are furious or disturbed, or if they need to solve an issue. One of the most helpful, basic, and hardest listening skills is to be silent and allow the other person to speak. If you're dealing with an angry or upset person, they won't be able to think properly until they've vented all their feeling. 3. Avoid the role of armchair psychologist. Everyone, to some degree, is a psychologist. We all want to have our own opinions about why so-and-so is constantly furious, why our cousin always goes for guys who treat her terribly, and so on. Analyze away at your leisure. Do not guess about someone's personal reasons or why they act in a certain way when they share vital information with you. At best, you will come out as too curious. In the worst-case scenario, your discussion partner will feel patronized and enraged towards you. 4. Do not interrupt with unwanted advice. Even if you've been in the same scenario or had the same challenges as someone else, do not give your views or answers until specifically requested. Unwanted counsel or ideas are among the most vexing annoyances. Resist the desire to assure them you understand precisely what they're going through. You don't? To put it frankly, two individuals may have an identical experience, but due to differences in personality, upbringing, and past life experiences, they will not feel the same emotions. If your discussion partner asks for your opinion, provide it but wait for their reaction. Continue if they look receptive to your comments. Stop and ask whether they want you to continue if they start frowning, crossing their arms, or otherwise show that your counsel isn't useful or appreciated. Remember that no one is obligated to accept your advice. Set your ego aside for a while. Once you've made your contribution, it's up to the other person to plan their next step. Furthermore, they may not be telling the full picture, and they will need to examine other facts and factors while developing a plan of action. 5. Rephrase but do not repeat someone else's words. You've probably heard that repeating someone's words back to them demonstrates that you've been paying attention. To a degree, this is correct. There is a narrow line between displaying comprehension and literal quotation. To demonstrate the notion, I will provide an example. Assume your buddy remarked to you, "I've been feeling rather lonely lately. My family seems to be unconcerned with what I'm doing, or if I'm even pleased." Here are two possible responses. Which do you think would make your buddy feel genuinely heard, and which would irritate them? So, you feel like they aren't paying attention to you right now? Or have you been feeling lonely recently, as if your family doesn't care what you're up to? The second reaction demonstrates that you heard the real words, but it also sounds strange. Your companion may question whether she has been conversing with a parrot rather than a human person. I like the first answer because it demonstrates an understanding of the meaning behind the words, as well as the words themselves. 6. Verify your assumption. We all have a tendency to see the world through the prism of our own preferences and experiences. For example, if you are close to your parents and love calling your mother once a week, you are likely to feel distressed on someone else's behalf if they inform you that their own mother is very sick. However, if your discussion partner has a strained connection with their parents, they are unlikely to be empathetic. In fact, your compassion may make them feel uneasy. What is the takeaway here? Do not transfer your own emotions onto others. Allow them to explain what a situation means to them personally. You should never tell someone how they should feel. Accept that everyone is different and that no two people will behave in the same manner under the same circumstances. Put it into action. Today's task is to call a friend or family you haven't seen or talked with in a long time, and then utilize the discussion to practice your active listening abilities. You don't have to talk on the phone for hours. Try a 20-minute catch-up. Ask them what they've been up to recently, and try to listen carefully. You may be surprised at how often you engage in poor listening habits. After that, revisit this chapter and give yourself an honest evaluation of how well you performed. This workout also has a wonderful bonus. You may strengthen and deepen your friendship by calling a friend or family. Consider the last time someone phoned you unexpectedly and really inquired about your well-being. Didn't it feel good? You felt appreciated. The individual you call will have the same reaction. You may even create a practice of calling them on a regular basis. Day 2. Count the number of times you interrupt other people. What is the most vexing communication habit you've ever encountered? There are many contenders, but most of us agree that being interrupted is one of the most vexing. Today, you'll look at how often you interrupt others and then concentrate on giving your discussion partners the time and space they need. Interrupting people is simple. For example, if you are involved in a heated debate, you may want to speak out soon away. If you're enthusiastic about a concept, it's possible that your excitement may rise to the surface. But herein lays the difficulty. Even if your thoughts are outstanding, your discussion partner will be too irritated to give you their whole attention if you interrupt. Your interruption implies that your views and opinions are more significant than theirs. Interruptions. As you are aware from personal experience, disrupt your stream of thought. Interruptions may sometimes make someone feel unappreciated. If someone respects you and your opinions, they should at least allow you to finish speaking, right? When actively listening to others, you must employ the same concept. Interrupting someone else's conversation may utterly destroy your chances of forming a solid connection with them. And this is not an exaggeration. They will begin to retreat from you if they believe you are more interested in steamrolling over them with your particular point of view than in getting to know them. Here's how to break the habit of interrupting. 1. Set goals for yourself and reward yourself. Set a reasonable objective and choose a tiny reward as an appropriate motivator. For example, you may promise yourself that if you don't interrupt people more than 10 times throughout the day, you'll pick up your favorite magazine or candy bar on the way home. 2. Posters. Sometimes the simplest answers are the best. To remind myself not to interrupt people, I place a little sticky note on my computer display. It has a drawing of a closed mouth immediately under an ear. When I'm on the phone or using the camera, I look at it. It reminds me that if I want to expand my connections and my business, I must let others speak for themselves. 3. Make a list of any points you wish to make ahead of time. You can't take notes during an unscheduled talk, but you may bring a list to a scheduled meeting. It's simpler to stop from interrupting when you know your important arguments are neatly bulleted on a piece of paper. When someone else is speaking in a formal meeting, you may take notes on your opinions. You may then go to your notes and ask for clarification after they've done. 4. Keep in mind that your quiet is equally as powerful as your voice. Nobody loves a braggart or someone who seems to enjoy the sound of their own voice. On the other hand, everyone appreciates someone who listens to others and is cautious while presenting their own perspective. If the prospect of being silent frightens you, Consider that your interrupting habit may stem from a feeling of insecurity. Some chronic interrupters feel compelled to demonstrate that they have opinions of their own or that they have earned a seat in the room. Does this ring a bell? If this is the case, your interruption habit may be more than simply an annoyance. It may be time to analyze and treat any underlying emotions of inferiority, either on your own or with the help of a trained therapist. 5. Experiment with biting your mouth. The term bite your tongue might be used literally in this context. When you feel the need to speak out, put your tongue between your teeth. The feeling will serve as a continual reminder to avoid butting in. Differences in culture. The advice in this chapter is based on the assumption that you and those around you were raised in a society that considers interruptions to be a sign of rudeness. Most Westerners would agree that it is polite to wait for someone else to complete speaking before answering. It's important to note, though, that individuals experience disruptions differently depending on their culture. Interruptions and crosstalk, for example, are considered common in certain cultures. To offer 2 concrete instances, people of Italian heritage consider interruptions to be an appropriate method of expressing interest in a subject. Meanwhile, persons reared in Japanese society often assume that interrupting someone to ask for explanation is appropriate. Consider the likelihood of a cultural divide when you encounter someone who appears unusually ready to interrupt. It is not polite to ask someone to discuss their family's ancestry, but just being aware of these variances might help you stay calm and patient. You may bridge the gap by asking explicitly, "I've got something extremely important to say and don't want to miss anything. So if you have any questions, could you kindly keep them until the end?" Put it into action. Today's exercise is quite straightforward, or at least it is in principle. Count the number of times you interrupt other people in all of your talks, and then follow the methods above to stop yourself. You should attempt to chat to at least 3 persons. Even better if you can perform this in a group. When I initially did this practice, I was surprised to learn that I couldn't even let others complete their statements. My objective was not to be disrespectful or unpleasant, but I'm sure my discussion companions were frustrated. I still find myself interrupting people much too often unless I make an effort to keep myself in control. It's a difficult habit to change, but your friends and family will appreciate it. Who knows? If you master the skill of keeping your mouth shut, you may discover something new. Day 3. Become an inclusive communicator. We all have different perspectives on politics and social problems. However, most of us can agree on one point. Everyone, regardless of origin or particular qualities, deserves to be treated with dignity. Today, you will discover the significance of inclusive communication. What exactly is inclusive communication? In a word, a competent inclusive communicator avoids alienating or offending an entire group of individuals based on their unique characteristics. They do not form conclusions about others based on their features. Diversity is acknowledged and valued in inclusive communication. Mastering this talent is becoming more crucial in the 21st century. People from all walks of life now work and socialize together as a result of globalization. Inclusive communication fosters pleasant interpersonal connections and even improves company success. According to research, there is a favorable relationship between gender diversity, ethnic diversity, and profit in firms. Communication hints for inclusiveness. 1. Don't overemphasize equality if it isn't absolutely necessary. Assume you're informing your staff that an employee from another department will be collaborating with them on a new project. This employee, Sam, happens to be homosexual. Sam, the homosexual man from Department X, will be joining us on Monday, would be inappropriate. Sam's sexual orientation is unimportant to his job. Thus, paying attention to it is unnecessary. 2. Don't make assumptions about a person's gender or sexual orientation. If possible, use gender-neutral terminology. For example, if your boss is leaving the firm and you do not yet know the gender of their successor, it is more suitable to refer to potential candidates as they rather than he or she until a permanent replacement is chosen. Do not presume that someone is heterosexual. It is preferable to use phrases such as partner or significant other, rather than boyfriend, wife, and so on. 3. If you must discuss someone's impairment, use neutral language. True, many persons with impairments suffer as a consequence of their infirmities, but phrases like Peter has epilepsy or Mary has schizophrenia are arrogant. 4. Concentrate on a person rather than whatever impairments they may have. Don't let someone's condition or disease define them. For example, Pat has depression is preferable than Pat is a depressive, or Pat is a depressive, or Pat is sad. 5. Do not perpetuate stereotypes. Making judgments about someone based on their country, race, or other features is disrespectful because it demonstrates a lack of regard for their unique qualities and personality. Even when it comes to good stereotypes, this idea holds true. If you meet a Chinese accountant, for example, it would be improper to claim that Chinese people are inherently brilliant accountants since Asians are so good at arithmetic. 6. Demonstrate respect for race and ethnicity by correct capitalization in written communication. For example, Native American, Black, and Torres Strait Islanders should all be capitalized. If in doubt, use a dictionary or a trusted web resource. 7. Keep context in mind. Keep in mind that it is sometimes appropriate for members of a group to use language that would be objectionable to outsiders. Some members of the LGBT+ community, for example, refer to themselves as queer. However, if used by a heterosexual person, this term is normally deemed insulting, and not all LGBT+ persons embrace it in the first place. If in doubt, avoid any loaded expressions that have traditionally been used to disparage or humiliate people. 8. Avoid patronizing specific persons or groups of people. If you have a handicap, you may have heard someone characterize you as brave or inspiring for doing ordinary things like cleaning your house, going to work, or exercising at the gym. My relative walks with a cane as a result of a vehicle accident some years ago. Several well-meaning individuals have lauded him as an inspiration. Their intentions are excellent, but my cousin feels patronized as a result. Do not assume that simply because someone has a handicap, they want to be honored for being alive. Is it truly vital to communicate in an inclusive manner? I understand why some individuals believe inclusive communication is too politically correct. However, if you do not employ inclusive communication, you will rapidly find yourself in problems, regardless of where your own beliefs rest. Using sexist language in the office, for example, may find you in hot water with here or give you a reputation as someone who is out of touch with current decorum. Why telling insensitive jokes is detrimental, even if you're just kidding. I've met a few folks who believe it's okay to make offensive jokes or stereotype groups of people, as long as you don't truly hold harmful ideas. But consider this. Those who accept negative stereotypes and hold racist, sexist, or other objectionable attitudes would feel vindicated anytime they hear such jokes. This implies that racism, sexism, and other types of discrimination are tolerated. Make no disparaging remarks and make it clear to others that you don't think them amusing. Put it into action. Isometric exercise. Do you make assumptions or generalizations, whether favorable or negative, about certain groups? Consider if your choice of words is polite the next time you participate in a conversation that involves a debate about other people. Could you be a more open communicator? Make a note of where and how you might enhance the next time around. If relevant, exercise. 2. Turn on the television or go to YouTube and look for a program with a lot of conversation. Keep an eye on it for around 15 to 20 minutes. Is anybody participating in the discussion holding any unfavorable ideas or opinions towards certain groups? Do you encounter comparable terminology in your daily interactions? If that's the case, how would you go about doing so? Day 4. How to expand your vocabulary. If you have a large vocabulary, you will be evaluated positively in social circumstances. When a person understands the meaning of numerous words and can use them appropriately within the context of everyday speech, most people presume greater levels of education and intellect. Those who comprehend and appreciate complicated words and phrases have a significant edge in both personal and professional situations. Today, you'll discover why having a large vocabulary is a great advantage, as well as how to expand your own dictionary. Why does your vocabulary make a difference? There is a correlation between vocabulary and job success. According to a study conducted by linguistics and education expert Johnson O'Connor, those who score well on vocabulary exams are much more likely to get high-level jobs in the workplace. This conclusion holds true even after controlling for gender, age, and degree of education. Even more intriguing, proficiency on vocabulary tests predicts success. It's not merely a result of working in top positions or interacting with educated people. So, what exactly is going on here? In a word, a strong vocabulary is the greatest basis for communication. And communication is where success begins. When you have more words at your disposal, you are better able to express the correct point. The more diverse your vocabulary, the more adept you will become at articulating subtle concepts and comprehending new lines of thinking and reasoning. Someone with a large vocabulary may adjust their oral and written communication to a variety of audiences, allowing them to develop fruitful connections with others and thrive. A broad vocabulary also enables you to absorb information from complicated sources, giving you the tools you need to better your personal and professional talents. For example, those who are comfortable reading and comprehending high-level textbooks are more likely to profit from advanced education and training than those who just identify basic daily vocabulary. Because you won't have to halt to define a term when you're acquainted with it, your reading speed will increase. Isn't it self-evident? Here are a few ideas to get you started. 1. Try to learn a new word every day. Make it a practice to look up a new term every morning and then use it at some point throughout the day. If it's a very esoteric term and you can't organically include it into a discussion, at the very least tell someone you learned a fantastic new word and then explain them what it means. 2. Use apps and online games to help you learn new words. There are hundreds of free applications and games available to assist users learn new terms. Free Rice is one of my favorites. Free Rice. Comb. It's a basic multiple choice game that will put your vocabulary to the test. The more correct answers you receive, the more harder the problems get. If you respond incorrectly, the website will show you where you went wrong. As an extra bonus, the site's owners will contribute a little bit of rice to individuals in need for each accurate answer you provide. Popular applications for learning new words include PowerVocab, vocabulary, Com 7 Little Words, 7 Little Words, Com, and Words with Friends 2, Zynga Com. 3. Become a word enthusiast. While learning words in isolation will help you expand your vocabulary, developing a deeper understanding of a word's structure and origins will put you in an excellent position to grasp new terms you meet in the future. When learning a new term, break it down into its essential pieces. The term orthostatic, for example, denotes related to or induced by an upright stance. If you break the term down, it's a merger of ortho, which means straight, and static, which means straight, and static, which means concern with bodies at rest. Understanding the meanings of prefixes and suffixes can aid you in deciphering new terms. 4. Read widely. This is the tried and true tip for anybody who wishes to seem clever and informed. Don't read the same books and periodicals you always do. Explore new subjects and read denser, more difficult language to stretch yourself. Every day, set aside at least 15 minutes for reading. There is, in my view, no reason not to read. Not only will it increase your vocabulary, but it will also help you become a well-rounded person capable of communicating with almost anybody. 5. If you're unsure about the meaning of a term, ask. It's natural to feel uncomfortable when you hear a term you don't know, but it's also a great chance to learn something new. If someone attempts to make you feel lesser because you don't know what a term means, that's their issue. If you are unable to inquire at the moment, make a mental note of the term and look it up later in your dictionary. Put it into action. I want you to learn 5 new terms today and then use them into your spoken or written communication. Exercise I look at the apps and websites recommended in this chapter and commit to utilizing one for at least 5 minutes every day for a week. Day 5. Swap, but for, and embrace yet. Sometimes it's the smallest details that make the biggest impact. Today, I'd want to direct your attention to the words but and but. The words we use determine not just how others see us, but also how we perceive ourselves. When you learn the skill of good communication, the world will look more welcome to you. You'll start seeing possibilities instead of difficulties, and others will be attracted to your proactive, positive nature. You don't have to trust that these suggestions will work. Just put them into action and see the results for yourself. But and how often do you hear but statements? Here are a few such examples. I'd want to take a vacation, but I'm afraid of flying. I'd want to return to school, but I don't have the time. I'd want to run a marathon, but I'm completely out of shape. The speaker offers a specific explanation to a problem or circumstance in each of these sentences. They claim that they can't go on vacation because they are afraid of flying, or that they don't have enough free time to go to school, or that they are out of shape and so can't run a marathon. Most individuals are unaware that a standard but sentence is very restricting and negative. This gets clearer if you remove but and replace it with an. Consider the first case in the above list. I'd want to go on vacation, but I'm afraid of flying. When you replace but with and, you instantly notice the difference. I'd want to go on vacation, but I'm afraid to fly. The amended phrase implies that the speaker is terrified of flying and would want to go on vacation. It's a little distinction, but it's significant. It implies that the individual has a want as well as a problem that has to be addressed, rather than a desire that will be thwarted by their situation. When I first start working with a customer, I find that they often repeat the same but phrases. They become our own narrative justifications that we don't challenge. We believe them to be real and accept them as gospel truth. These innate ideas take on the appearance of a script. The more you repeat them, the more you get ensconced in the position of someone who wants to alter their life, but is unable to do so because of a single issue beyond their control. When I educate my customers to eliminate the buts and replace them with ands, I generally notice a significant improvement. This adjustment in thinking may be seen in their expression within a few minutes, as they discover that the way you frame an issue makes all the difference when coming up with answers to a problem. Hope replaces despair. Another issue with saying "but" is that it might make people defensive. Most of us think that when we hear that one word, it means that criticism or unpleasant news is on the way. For example, if you tell someone that you appreciate their perspective but prefer a different technique, they are likely to feel intimidated and chastised. However, assuring them that you appreciate their point of view and wish to try a different approach will typically evoke a more favorable reaction. It suggests that you appreciate their input, even if you will not act on it. This strategy fosters a feeling of belonging and mutual support. The power of the word "yet." Adding "yet" to the end of a negative phrase might change its meaning. Consider the following examples. I'm not knowledgeable enough about this subject to pass the test. I don't know enough about this subject yet to pass the test. I can't seem to find a girlfriend. I haven't found a girlfriend yet. I just do not make enough money to own a home. I simply don't make enough money yet to purchase a home. Using the word "yet" shows yourself and others that you haven't given up. You are recognizing that things may change. You may not know precisely how you will bring these changes about, but you are at least open to the possibilities. It instantly changes you into a more upbeat, optimistic person, at least in the view of others. This strategy is not limited to conversation. It is also useful for controlling your own self-talk. It instills a feeling of optimism and possibility while still urging you to be practical. It recognizes your existing circumstances and issues while emphasizing that you are on the correct route. Put it into action. Today, you will be able to attempt 2 exercises. Isometric exercise. When you find yourself saying anything unpleasant that involves the word "but," replace it with an "don't be shocked if your positivity becomes infectious." This one little tweak will make you sound more confident and upbeat. Others will be inspired by this. If you are unable to practice this in conversation, use it as a writing exercise instead. Allow yourself 5 minutes to jot down any "but" remarks you've lately made. What happens if you substitute "and" for "but"? When I make this small change, I feel less powerless in the face of my issues. Exercise "no." Set off on a "yet" hunt. Whenever you make a negative comment or complain about a lack of a resource, add a "yet" at the end. You may also discreetly insert a "yet" at the end of other people's statements to observe how it alters their meaning. You may be tempted to tell people that they'd feel better if they used "yet" more often, but this is best avoided unless you're convinced they enjoy constructive input. Day 6. Watch your pronouns. Unless you're presenting a monologue, you should constantly regard your discussion partner's demands. Never, ever bore them. You break this rule at your own risk. It's pointless to express yourself if no one is going to listen to you anyhow. Do you like talking about yourself? You're perfectly typical. Whether you ask the ordinary person if they love talking about themselves and hearing the sound of their own voice, they would probably respond, "Me." Of course not. But let's face it, most of us like talking about ourselves. That is totally okay in moderation. You're living your own life, so it's natural that you're fascinated with your own experiences. Furthermore, persons who never divulge anything about themselves are seen as untrustworthy. The finest communicators know how to strike a balance between self-disclosure and respect for others. Keep your is to a minimum. A remarkable research study conducted at the University of California in 1988 discovered a correlation between narcissism and the number of times a person used the word "I" during a 5-minute monologue. The subjects, 24 men and 24 women, were given several minutes to talk on a topic of their choice. The researchers taped their speeches and tallied the amount of times each speaker utilized first-person pronouns. Participants who scored higher on narcissistic measures tended to use I more often. So, I speaking is a solid predictor of narcissism, right? No, not exactly. Later study has shown that there is no link between the two. What does this suggest for those of us looking to create a positive first impression? The essential element is that although psychologists dispute on whether I speaking is really connected to narcissism, the common layman notices it. In other words, although a psychologist may recognize that I speaking does not always indicate narcissism, most other people will. To summarize, it is reasonable to state that avoiding excessive I speaking will be beneficial to you. When to use the pronoun it. A lot of I talk will not endear you to anybody, but it is sometimes the best strategy. Here's when you should put it to use. 1. When you're assertive. When you're defending your rights, saying I creates a clear distinction between you and the other person, enabling you to express precisely how you feel about the issue. Assume your spouse fails to undertake their fair share of home tasks. Instead of listing their flaws and telling them they need to change right now, it might be more helpful to utilize I speak to convey how their actions have made you feel. Someone may disagree with your interpretation of their actions, but they cannot disagree with your sentiments. Statements starting with I are less offensive than charges beginning with you. To continue with the preceding example, it is preferable to state, I feel devalued when I come home to discover that you have not cleaned the kitchen after you promised to do so, rather than you do nothing and the house is a total disaster. 2. When you wish to present a potentially divisive viewpoint. If you're discussing a delicate subject such as religion or politics, it's a good idea to express to everyone listening that you respect other people's viewpoints. Your opinions are your own, and they do not reflect the opinions of everyone else. To avoid looking impolite, do not state your opinion as fact. Instead, begin it with AI. Countless disputes might be avoided if individuals took a moment to recognize that not everyone feels the same way they do, and that differences are okay. 3. When you wish to give credit to someone for an idea. When developing a strategy or fresh concept, it is usually advantageous to collaborate with others. If you are willing to work as part of a team, you will be more popular. However, it is occasionally preferable to show that you are the only recipient of the credit. For example, if you want to advance at work and your boss emphasizes self-sufficiency, say I while discussing your ideas. Reduce I speak and replace it with we talk. The term we immediately conjures up feelings of unity. The use of the word we emphasizes commonalities and shared experiences, creating a feeling of closeness. This may be done in such a subtle manner that no one will notice. You are not required to modify the meaning of what you say. Simply make a few tiny changes. Consider the following examples to show how this works. I believe the meeting begins at 3 o'clock. Do we have to be in the conference room by 3? I recall the summer of 2012. It was quite hot. The summer of 2012 was quite hot. I believe that home will be prohibitively pricey. We need to find out whether that home is too pricey. Exercise in putting it into practice. You are going to count the amount of is you use today. Don't be concerned if you begin to lose track. It is not required to remove I entirely. Simply push yourself to stay attentive of what you're saying. Exercise no. 2. Listen in on a discussion and count how many times each person begins a statement with it. For a few minutes, keep 2 running totals, 1 for each participant. Are the figures nearly equal? Do they both appear pleased with how the talk is progressing? This activity is especially effective if you can watch 2 strangers since you will have no preconceived notions about their personalities or the topics they are discussing. Whenever I've tried it, I've seen that if one person utilizes a lot of I speak, their discussion partner becomes bored. Keep this in mind the next time you find yourself repeating I too often. Day 7. Offer a helping hand. Giving and accepting assistance is a natural element of being human. Giving someone a helping hand who needs practical or emotional assistance is satisfying and may strengthen your connection. Unfortunately, giving assistance isn't always easy. Today, you'll discover how to help someone in need. Why asking someone if they need assistance might be difficult. There is a narrow line between giving someone assistance and implying they are inept. The other person may feel patronized if you do not tackle the problem sensitively. They may also think that you are interfering in their life. Withholding assistance, on the other hand, might make you look cold and distant. Here are a few pointers to help you find the proper balance. 1. When extending assistance to someone, explain why you are doing so. When you do this, the other person will see your offer is driven by a desire to make their life simpler. Make it obvious that you do not want to be ordered about. Assume your buddy has just moved into a property that needed major structural and aesthetic repairs. When you go to see them at their new house, you see that everything is a total shambles. Your pal looked exhausted, nearly in tears. They inform you that the home is turning out to be a far larger job than they had planned. You want to offer to assist your buddy, but you don't want to belittle them by hinting that they can't possibly do the task on their own. Which of the following questions do you think would be most appropriate in this situation? Do you need assistance with this location? Or, hey, I've noticed you've been a little fatigued lately, and this home is a huge undertaking. I'd be delighted to assist you. Could I come over this weekend to help with the wiring? The latter is more sensitive since it demonstrates to your buddy that you have taken the time to comprehend their dilemma. It implies that you have assessed their circumstances and are not just making a foolish offer of assistance because you believe they are incapable of handling the work alone. 2. Instead of offering a broad offer of support, ask, how can I help? Or can I help? Or can I help by doing X? Is the following scenario familiar to you? You've received some unpleasant news. You pass the information on to someone else. Just phone me if you need assistance, they offer, or let me know if there's anything I can do. These offerings are well intended, yet they are ambiguous. They can come out as formulaic and platitudinous. It's difficult to tell if they were constructed just for the purpose of courtesy. What is the takeaway here? If you are giving assistance, be explicit in your offer. If that fails, at the very least, ask a question that allows the other person to tell you what they need. Consider the difficulties that someone in their circumstance could experience on a daily basis. For example, if a friend's kid is in the hospital, you may discover that grocery shopping and keeping the home clean may seem onerous given the circumstances. Can I assist you by performing a shopping run? Or would you want me to come over and do the chores for you? In the event of small issues, the same rules apply. If your coworker seems overworked and worried one morning, don't simply stand there and say, "You look busy, so let me know if you need any assistance." It might be preferable to say something like, "Can I assist you by completing that paperwork for you?" Or, "Would you want me to take notes for the meeting this afternoon?" 3. Concentrate on assisting a person to alter their circumstances rather than their character. Character flaws may sometimes be the root of a person's issues. For example, if your buddy lost their job because they are often late and daydream while sitting at their desk, they created their own issues by failing to conform to fundamental norms of conduct required of an employee. Your responsibility in this scenario, however, is not to fix their character or to lecture them on how to conduct their life. Yes, substantial personal transformation is possible, but it must originate from inside the individual, and it may need the support of a professional. You might assist them in looking for a new employment or researching training providers if they wish to change careers. It is pointless to point out someone's flaws and then expect them to change right away. They most likely already know what they need to improve on and will be offended by your amateur psychoanalysis. In fact, they may likely hate your efforts to intervene, which might harm your connection. Offer practical assistance or just listen, but never attempt to help by changing someone's nature. 4. Don't give emotional assistance or support unless you are confident in your ability to remain non-judgmental. If you have the necessary abilities, offering to assist someone by talking through an issue or simply listening is fantastic. Be truthful to yourself. Can you trust yourself to remain silent and listen if a friend or family is dealing with a major crisis, even if they choose to do something you disagree with? This is particularly crucial if their future moves may have an immediate effect on your personal life. If you are unable to listen, assist them in locating someone who can be depended on to hear them out. This individual should ideally have no emotional stake in the issue. 5. If you wish to provide money, be flexible. If you have a friend or family who is having financial difficulties, you may wish to assist them, assuming you can afford it, of course. However, many people are sensitive about money and are hesitant to receive it from friends and family. Don't be shocked if someone declines your offer of financial assistance. If someone is too proud to receive a monetary present, or if it violates their values, you might either provide a loan at no interest instead, or supply them with chances and services to help them get back on their feet. You may, for example, volunteer to babysit their children for free while they attend job interviews or connect them with professional connections in your sector. Put it in action. Do you know somebody who has been going through a rough patch recently? Call them and offer to assist them. Make sure you know what you're capable of offering ahead of time. And don't promise more than you can give. Day 8. Practice saying thank you. Thank you is one of the most significant words in the English language. Human relationships are founded not only on common interests and effective communication, but also on reciprocal acts of service. Close friendships, for example, are built on an unwritten understanding, typically kept unsaid, that one friend would listen to the other in times of need. Today, consider how often you express gratitude to individuals who assist you on their journey to success. Even self-made men and women need a helping hand or two. Nobody loves whining, resentful people who refuse to recognize their good fortune. There are few things more irritating than someone who has so many reasons to be appreciative yet constantly complains. Those who get assistance from others but fail to recognize it are much more despised. It doesn't matter how much prestige you have or how famous you are never too good to stop and thank everyone who assists you. It's a simple method to establish a reputation as a joyful, optimistic person that everyone loves to be around. 1. Begin with a simple thank you. Although a simple thank you is always appreciated, there is a fast method that will guarantee you leave a lasting impression. Tell someone just what has made you grateful in a few more words. Assume a coworker has volunteered to attend a meeting on your behalf and take notes since you're desperately required on a project. The majority of individuals would accept the letters and remark, "Thank you very much. That's okay, but what would happen if you used one of the following words instead? I appreciate you taking the time to create those notes for me. I appreciate you filling in for me and obtaining that information. Thank you for taking such extensive notes. It was really helpful." These options are unique and personal. This strategy will make the other person feel more valued for their efforts, which will improve your connection It also keeps you from taking other people for granted. For example, if your spouse prepares dinner most nights, you may discover that you lose sight of your gratitude over time. Making an effort to demonstrate how much you appreciate them can strengthen your friendship. 2. Offer to reciprocate their kindness. If someone has gone out of their way to assist you, volunteering to help them in return will show your gratitude. Most people will not take you up on your offer, but they will appreciate the fact that you asked. How can I repay the favor? Or is there anything I can do in exchange? You might also inform them that if they need anything in the future, they can contact you. Keep in mind that relationships are formed on give and take. Both partners in a good friendship are willing to provide and receive help. 3. Never reject a compliment. I believe most of us are guilty of dismissing a compliment or bit of praise on occasion. Even a well-timed compliment can make some of us blush with modesty. But arguing with someone who is trying to compliment you is impolite. The only appropriate response is a heartfelt thank you. I'm so glad you think so. Or something along those lines. What if you suspect that someone is merely flattering you or making a sarcastic remark? You should still say thank you because you will win regardless. You win if they give you a genuine compliment. You still win if they are being sarcastic or manipulative and you say, thank you, before changing the subject because you haven't let them drag you down to their level. Gratitude and psychological well-being. Saying thank you makes you feel grateful for what you have, which makes you happier. Research shows that gratitude listing, literally writing down what you are thankful for, improves mood and well-being. This is even true for people living with a chronic health condition. When you make a point of thanking other people, you will automatically start noticing what goes well in your life. It helps you develop a growth mindset, which encourages you to identify opportunities instead of obstacles. Unsurprisingly, research has also shown that people who are thanked for their efforts enjoy greater mental health than those who feel underappreciated. Put it into action. Isometric exercise. Today, your challenge is to find opportunities to express thanks and gratitude. There are bound to be at least a few people to thank. Let everyone know how much their help means to you. Even if someone just holds the door open, look them in the eye and say, thanks a lot. If you are lucky enough to be on the receiving end of a significant act of kindness, let the other person know how much you appreciate them. Exercise if possible, take it one step further and make time to tell a loved one how much you value their ongoing help and support. You could even call them up just to tell them how wonderful they are. One day, I realized that I had never told my mother how much I appreciated all the support she'd given me during my college years, especially those times I struggled to stay motivated. That night, I called to let her know how vital her love and help had been on my academic journey. I told her that although I should have made that call years ago, I figured it was better late than never. She was surprised, but then burst into happy tears. Never underestimate the power of a sincere thank you. Day 9. Stop trying to score points. I'll admit it. I like being correct, and I'm not alone in this. We all have our own perspectives, and it's satisfying when we know, or believe we know, best. The problem arises when we set out to show the legitimacy of our position just for the purpose of gaining points or having someone else admit that they were incorrect all along. If you've ever spent hours attempting to persuade someone to adopt your point of view on an issue or problem, don't be too hard on yourself. It's something we've all done. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I gave up on the concept of winning every dispute. I used to believe that until I forced my unfortunate opponent to admit that I was correct, I had somehow lost or shown myself to be weak. Half of the time, I wasn't even interested in the issue at hand. My main interest was demonstrating how much superior I was to everyone else in the room. In retrospect, I'm shamed for my younger self. He was so preoccupied with convincing everyone of his alleged intellect that he lost out on the opportunity to form some nice friendships and love connections. I used to wonder why my dates never turned into anything more. In retrospect, everything seems so clear. Many women despise self-righteous guys who relish lecturing them why their opinions are completely incorrect. Needless to say, a combative attitude does not establish the foundation for a solid friendship or love connection. And it may also drive your family insane. It's entertaining to have an argument now and again, but constant sparring is tiresome. You know the old adage, sometimes being happy is more important than being right? That's what I'm referring to. Let go of the little petty debates and conserve your thinking powers for the important issues. Let me be quite clear about what I mean in this chapter. I'm not referring about situations in which you need to persuade someone to alter their viewpoint. For example, if your husband wants to relocate to the city, but you believe it is much better for both of you to stay in the country, you must argue against the move. That is only plain sense. If you want other people to like you and open up to you, it's not a good idea to put your beliefs on them only to win an argument. Exchange ideas and viewpoints, but keep an eye out for the moment when you cross the line between healthy dialogue and petty argument. Why gaining points is, well, worthless. Keep in mind that point scoring seldom works in the first place. The more you push someone, and the more adamant you are in arguing that you are right and they are wrong, the more probable it is that they will shut down. This phenomena has a good neurobiological explanation. When we are faced with a potentially dangerous circumstance, our fight or flight response goes into high gear. Activity levels in the portions of the brain responsible for rational thinking and reasoning decrease while conflict-related areas are activated. As a consequence, we become less interested in genuinely assessing the data presented by others and instead focus on fighting back. This is why two individuals may be having a sensible discourse one minute and then be yelling and screaming at each other the next. Even if you win an argument, you may suffer long-term consequences. You never know if someone gives in because you persuaded them of your point of view, or because they have just stopped engaged with you because they are bored of the entire issue. When matters go unsolved, conflict may turn into resentment. Just because you seem to have succeeded in bulldozing your opponent does not imply they will forget it very soon. If you want to keep your relationship, be sure that any major underlying concerns have been addressed. Pay attention to your emotional condition. If you're anxious, upset, or want to punch a wall, whatever comes out of your lips is unlikely to be useful or beneficial. Another telltale indicator that you're more interested in scoring points than having a good debate is a sudden discovery that you can't recall what caused the dispute in the first place, and you don't care. If you're still not persuaded, consider how much more at ease you'll feel if you let go of the notion that you always have to have the final word. Wouldn't it be good to know that if someone has a point of view that differs from yours, you are not obligated to examine everything they say? If you like the exhilaration of a heated debate, consider joining a philosophical discussion club or debating society. Choose a more productive way to express your theatrical side. Don't let it ruin your relationships. Put it into action. You're going to let other folks be incorrect today. It will be difficult to spend time with someone who has opposing beliefs to your own, but that is the entire purpose. You're not going to spend your time or breath explaining why their perspective is invalid. What have you received out of it in the past? Probably nowhere. What effect does point scoring have on your relationships? Nothing. If you need to excuse yourself from a situation in order to avoid an argument, do so, but try to stick it out. This activity will demonstrate that the world does not collapse when other individuals perceive things differently. You'll quickly see that there is enough place in the world for all sorts of viewpoints. Nobody is under any moral responsibility to agree with you. You also have no obligation to persuade them of your point of view. Day 10. Ask questions that get results. What do you do when you need to find out information quickly? Do. Of course you should ask questions. It should be so easy. Should it not? Unfortunately, as you are aware, this is not always the case. It is simple to get clear replies from others. You cannot compel someone to respond, but you may tremendously influence their response. Improve your chances of getting a solid answer by adjusting the way you ask. Questions. Here's how to obtain them. 1. Gradually progress to high-pressure questions. Nobody likes having a crucial question thrown at them. Show any sympathy for their predicament. Assume, for example, that you'd want to ask your boss some questions concerning your job. Odds of being given a raise next year, rather of storming in and asking right away whether you. If you believe your wage will be increased, inquire as to whether this is a possibility. A wonderful moment to discuss your role at the organization and prospective future events. 2. Determine if an open or closed query is preferable. We're often advised that asking open-ended questions such starting with why and how is a better strategy than starting with what. Asking closed-ended questions that can only be answered with a yes. Alternatively, no. True. The former will elicit more detailed replies, but this is not necessarily a positive thing. For example, if you are conversing with someone known for rambling on without getting to the point, it would be better to utilize a closed question instead at this stage. 3. When assisting someone with a problem, use a 4-part framework. With a difficulty, questions do more than merely assist you in obtaining information. They are also an excellent approach to assist someone. During a crisis, sympathy and empathy can only go you so far. Inquiring about the appropriate questions will assist someone in developing a plan of action. That goes to the heart of the issue. Irene Leonard, an executive coach, suggests a 4-step process. Approach. Pose questions to someone that will assist them in narrowing their focus. It is their problem. What seems to be the problem here is a suitable phrase. The beginning point. B. Obtain further information. Once you've determined you may next utilize questions to help them identify the underlying reason of their discomfort. If necessary, get the whole tale. Can you tell me is an example of a question. More on that? And is there anything more you can tell me are beneficial in this situation? C. In order to determine their desired result, ask them questions. Encourage them, in particular, to tell you what a resolution might look like. Inquire as to what they desire to happen, what their priorities are, and how they choose to solve the problem. Issue. For example, do they desire to find things out on their own, with the help of a friend, or with the help of a third party? D. Pose questions that will assist them in determining their next steps. Steps. For example, you may inquire if they have any strong ideas about how they want to proceed and how they will know when they have achieved their goals. 4. Don't force someone to come to a conclusion. If you want, you must learn what someone really believes about a concept. Ask your query in a non-judgmental tone. In other words, you need to refrain from asking leading questions. Consider how you phrasing them. Here are 3 instances of bad questions. A person to provide a certain kind of response. Does everyone agree that we should simplify the process? Department. Do you think we shouldn't spend Thanksgiving at Peter's, this year's house? Shouldn't we put this into action right away? You'd be creating your own if you asked these questions. Biases are obvious. If someone firmly objected, they may raise their voice. Objections, but most individuals prefer a simple existence. Consequently, open questions may lead to poor decision-making on both sides, both at home and at work, which may be devastating. This is especially true if you have a strong personality, since not many individuals will be eager to take on your challenge. Make assumptions and test your ideas. Let's take a look at a more effective method to pose those questions. What do you all think we should do about the structure of the department? What do you think we should do for Thanksgiving this year? Year? When do you believe we should implement this plan? 5. People should not be forced to choose between 2 or 3 possibilities. This method presupposes that you have previously considered all possibilities. The alternatives available, although there may be valid alternatives, if you ask questions in this style, you will never know. It is more beneficial to just ask for someone's help, recommendations, or begin with a general remark such as, How do you approach this situation? 6. Be ready for the unexpected. Never think that you know everything. What someone is going to say is known ahead of time. Provide your undivided attention and be prepared with a few lines to employ if they reveal some startling facts. Thank you for informing me. I'll need some time to digest it. Can you just give me a moment to process that? As well as I'll confess. This has surprised me a bit, but I'd want to discuss it further, can all. Assist in smoothing up a difficult situation. There's much more guidance on the art of questioning in my book, The Science of Effective Communication. How to improve your social skills. Develop charisma and learn how to talk to people. Skills and small talk. Anyone. Put it into action. Today, you will put the preceding ideas into action when posing inquiries. If you've been intending to obtain some explanation, now's your chance. On a problem for a long but haven't gotten around to it, now is the time. Excellent timing. These questions don't have to be very important. The goal is to practice acquiring the information you need and to simultaneously engage in a good discourse. Remember to use your listening skills whenever the other person presents a response. Day 11. Refine your voice's speaking style. It is not just what you say, but also how you say it. Speaking at a sufficient volume and pitch will encourage others to listen to you. We've all met folks who aren't very bright or intriguing, but who know how to keep an audience interested. These people utilize their voices to attract the attention of their listeners. You should do the same. Voice development is not limited to actors and singers. Anyone who wishes to create a good impression should learn how to use their voice cords effectively. Today, you'll uncover your specific voice range and correct some of the most typical speaking errors that everyone does from time to time. No matter how compelling your message is, it will be lost if no one is listening. A dull, repetitive voice will suffocate your conversation. Here's how to make your voice more engaging and pleasant to listen to. 1. Lower your voice's pitch. According to studies, those who speak in a low pitch are viewed as more confident and competent than those who speak in a breathy voice. This is true for both men and women. People may and will assess you based on your speaking voice, whether you want it or not. Sit or stand up straight, take long breaths, and then count slowly from 1 to 5 as you exhale. Experiment with pitch by repeating the same word or sound, such as no, at different intervals. It's a good idea to understand how to breathe correctly, whether or not you're serious about building a decent speaking voice. I get what you're thinking. Doesn't everyone know how to breathe? Regrettably, this is not the case. Most of us breathe via our chests rather than our diaphragms. Practicing yoga and breath-based meditation can assist relax your muscles and guarantee a steady flow of oxygen throughout your body, which is beneficial to your health. 2. Use vocal exercises to improve your voice's smoothness. If your voice tends to quiver, especially when you're stressed, you should practice keeping it smooth and steady. Inhale deeply, then exhale slowly and steadily while generating a hissing sound. This should be done multiple times. Tongue twisters can help you practice speaking in a consistent tone. Repeat 3 free throws. Weird strategic data, or any tough phrase until it becomes second nature. Repeat these exercises many times a day. Another practice that can help you acquire a crisper, clearer voice is this one. Say, repeat this workout every day. 2. Eliminate any speech tics. I used to use the word a lot. I was aware that I didn't sound as confident as I would have wanted at the moment, but I had no clue how visible it was until a buddy pointed it out. I was ashamed at the moment, but she made me understand that if I wanted to be taken seriously, I needed to focus on getting rid of my vocal tic. Other common offenders besides include are like yeah, and they're okay in moderation, but if you use them often, your listeners will conclude you're not sure what you're talking about. Watch or listen to any video or audio recordings of yourself that you may have laying around. Count the number of times you utilize the above-mentioned words and phrases. The findings may surprise you, but they will motivate you to take action. If you don't have any material to work with, ask a buddy to record you while you're preoccupied. 4. Use brief phrases and short words wherever feasible. Short sentences are simpler to understand for your readers, regardless of their educational degree. Use technical jargon where appropriate, but use simple phrases when possible. Ideally, you should talk in short phrases that you can finish in a single breath. 5. Master the art of pausing. Effective presenters understand pauses add weight to their message. For example, a little pause between 2 points allows your audience to comprehend their significance. Pause after a rhetorical inquiry to give them a chance to contemplate the larger point you're making. 6. Change your voice's pitch and tone. Maintaining a low voice will help you sound more authoritative. Speaking in a monotone, on the other hand, will tire everyone around you. Allow yourself to feel something. It's okay, for example, to raise your voice in surprise or to use a quieter tone while consoling a buddy. Put it into action. I've set you 2 tasks for today. Exercise it. Make sure you have at least 10 minutes to yourself, otherwise folks around you may think you've gone insane. Find a book or article and read it aloud for a minute. Record yourself speaking, then listen to the recording. Take note of your loudness and pitch. We don't usually pay attention to the sound of our own voices, so you could be surprised when you hear it for the first time. Consider your tone of speech. Do you talk quietly, loudly, or somewhere in the middle? Are you high-pitched, low-pitched, or normal in your voice? Experiment with your recorder until you know how it feels to talk in a steady, even voice at a somewhat low pitch. Try the above-mentioned voice exercises. Exercise: no. 2. The second task is to practice conversing in a different tone of voice. If you already know the other person, don't fully alter your tone. They'll merely be curious as to why you suddenly sound so different. Most of us cannot help but react differently to voices with distinct pitches and inflections. You could be astonished by how everyone else responds. Day 12. Focus on behavior, not character. Today's assignment will not only enhance your communication abilities, but it will also raise your social intelligence. You'll discover a simple technique for resolving conflicts, meeting your demands in a relationship, and staying on everyone's good side. Do you know somebody who seems to be popular with everyone yet refuses to sugarcoat the truth? These people are able to criticize without alienating others and to resolve any issues in a matter of minutes. I used to have a boss like this. Everyone admired him. He had a reputation for being a straight shooter who might be a little harsh at times. But he was very popular. I'd pay close attention to him at meetings, trying to figure out how he managed to strike the proper balance. He seemed calm and courteous, but I had a feeling there was more to it. I built up the courage to approach him for some pointers one day. I had just been promoted to management and was attempting to learn how to address bad conduct in my team without being known as a rude or harsh boss. He admitted. There is one rule. Concentrate on their actions rather than their personality. I requested an example from him. Well, last week I had to write someone up for spending a lot of time on social media when he should have been working on a huge project. He said he was sluggish, but I never used the term lazy, nor did I imply that he was squandering his time. Instead, I discussed the facts. I stated why his actions were improper. I asked him how many hours he'd been spending online, and I had a printed copy of his contract on the table throughout our conversation. It was informed unequivocally that he was not permitted to utilize corporate networks for personal correspondence. He said he'd made a mistake, and that was pretty much the end of it. In retrospect, it seemed so obvious. Nobody's character was assassinated by my employer. All he had to do was spend a few moments to assemble his evidence and determine the facts. He was more concerned with what someone had done than with their personality or attitude in general. He spelt out the repercussions of not changing one's conduct, yet he never used the chance to tear someone apart. This is not limited to professional context. Use it if you need to point out someone's bad conduct. It's an excellent method since it prevents individuals from becoming defensive. If you begin studying their personality and delivering severe judgments on their character, you will be lured into a debate over what they truly are like. This is a complete waste of time and will have a negative impact on the connection. Let's look at two instances that demonstrate the importance of stressing actions and consequences above personalities and threats. Example 1. Your adolescent son's room is a shambles. You would want him to tidy things up. Don't say anything like, "Your room is an utter shambles. I can't believe you're so sluggish. You'd best sort that up right now or you'll be in big trouble." Instead, you may remark, "Your room is cluttered and needs to be cleaned. This is my home, and you must respect it. I expect you to have cleaned it before the weekend, or you will be denied access to the automobile on Friday night." Example 2. You are a supervisor. 3 mornings in a row, a member of your team has been late for work, and you want them to start showing up on time. You plainly don't care about your work, and you're letting the team down. Don't say, "Start arriving on time." You have been late 3 times in the last 14 days. You may say instead, "As you are aware, it is critical for the team's success that everyone arrives on time. If you are again late, you will be issued a written warning." By the way, this does not have to be a serious, life-altering talk. Assume a buddy invites you out to dinner, but then expects you to pay for everything. They vow to pay you back when payday arrives, but then they don't contact you. This leaves you feeling betrayed and undervalued. So-and-so is incredibly selfish. You may be thinking, people are usually taken for granted. Using the technique taught in this chapter, however, you would simply discuss their acts. Telling them you believe they're a selfish leech may feel good for a few seconds, but will it improve your friendship? Nope. Keep to the facts. Keep your cool if you have to make a request. In this example, for money. Concentrate on what you want, why you need it, and when you anticipate it to happen. Finally, there is another benefit to using this method. When you refer to someone's conduct rather than their character, you are implying that what they do is more important than who they are. This might motivate children to strive better in the future, particularly if you take the time to commend them on everything they accomplish well. Most individuals, whether they acknowledge it or not, thrive on praise. Positive reinforcement is usually appreciated. Put it into action. You will have a chat today with someone who has lately harmed or inconvenienced you. This fulfills two functions. For starters, it will help you clear the air and reestablish your connection. Second, it will allow you to experience talking about an issue in terms of someone else's actions. You're not going to make character judgments, instigate drama, or bring up the past only to harm them. Day 13. Uncover your communication background. Your communication style is within your control. I wouldn't have bothered creating this book if I didn't feel that we all had the capacity to become better communicators. However, there's no denying that your upbringing has influenced how you interact with people and how you behave yourself in relationships. It's just human nature. Because our parents, or whomever was in charge of our well-being, were our initial role models, we are built to mimic them. Sigmund Freud had a lot of strange notions, but he was correct when he argued that our early years shape our adult personalities. I think that self-awareness combined with action, of course, is a good basis for transformation. It may assist you in overcoming roadblocks or personal reluctance. For example, you may understand that expanding your vocabulary or speaking more confidently makes logical since it enhances your connections and social position. However, you may feel as though something is impeding your progress. In these situations, it's a good idea to go a bit further and consider how your fundamental assumptions about who you are and how you should communicate affect you. For example, if your parents taught you that when you are confident, people would see you as arrogant or overbearing, it should come as no surprise that you are resistant to change. Jenny's life story. Let me tell you about one of my clients. Jenny was an accomplished lawyer in her mid-30s who had been assured by her work mentor that she was on her way to becoming a partner at her firm. What's the issue? Her mentor informed her that she would be unlikely to be promoted until she learned to be more forceful with the firm's most important customers. Jenny had read assertiveness books and even attended a seminar, but she still lacked the type of confidence that would propel her career forward. "I don't understand it," Jenny said at our first meeting. "I know what I need to do, but something inside of me simply freezes up when I need to speak up for myself or debate with someone in positions of authority. How come I can't put what I learned at the seminar into practice?" At the time, I was beginning to study developmental psychology and was motivated to approach the topic from a different perspective. "Could you tell me about how your parents used to communicate with you, if you don't mind?" I said. Our dialogue then proceeded as follows. "Jenny, normally I'd say, whatever the hell normal is. Most of the time, they were really patient. My father was prone to losing his cool. If she didn't get her way, my mother would pout. They each have their own set of buddies. Their social skills are adequate." Me. "Sure thing. Would you describe them as assertive?" Jenny. No, 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 my father was a force to be reckoned with. If someone irritated him, he would always tell them. My mother, on the other hand, appeared to think, well, she didn't say it. But Jenny. She didn't seem to believe females should disturb anybody, if you know what I mean. She never told me that women shouldn't be pushy, but come to think of it, all of her pals are the passive, aggressive sort. I don't believe she likes powerful women. She often complimented me the most when I was amusing myself or being gentle and quiet. Jenny's mother exemplified a passive, aggressive communication style as we conversed further. Jenny informed me that her mother's sister had been much more direct and upfront, but her aunt lived far away and could not serve as a role model. Jenny's mother was the only steady female figure in her life. Thus, she taught her how to speak with people. Jenny would have learned to utilize a more aggressive communication style if her father had been her main carer. According to social learning theory, we acquire the actions and attitudes of the adults with whom we spend the most time. Jenny's mother was her primary caretaker in this scenario. Therefore, it was always more probable that Jenny would emulate her. Jenny felt embarrassed when she attempted to be aggressive since it contradicted her early conditioning. Jenny, on the other hand, recognized she didn't have to be a carbon copy of her mother. While she discovered out why she felt so awkward when standing out for herself, the explanation inspired her to develop her own communication style. I advised her to observe a couple of more assertive female attorneys in her firm and use them as new behavioral models. Jenny was promoted a few months after we began working together. Several questions to consider. Assume that you and I are now in a coaching session. This is a list of questions I would ask you. Take your time considering your responses. They may help you comprehend the lessons you've carried into your adult relationships. 1. Were my parents well-versed in social situations? It's simple. If your parents understood how to build healthy connections with people and keep a nice discussion going, you probably caught up on these talents as well. If not, you're probably perplexed by social settings. This might lead to self-doubt and apprehension while meeting new individuals. 2. Did my parent have any acquaintances? While it is reasonable to choose a wider or smaller social group, being utterly friendless is not. If your parents never shown an interest in other people, you may be perplexed by the norms of regular social interaction and may be unsure how to react when others express an interest in you. 3. Did my parents teach me any rules about communication or relationships? As Jenny's instance demonstrates, our parents' communication rules may become a defining aspect in our social lives. These rules do not even need to be expressed explicitly. Children are more interested in what people do than in what they say. If it's a tie between learning from words and learning from acts, it's always the actions that win. 4. Did my parents teach me how to reconcile after an argument or resolve a disagreement? In every intimate relationship, disagreements are unavoidable. Any form of disagreement will seem terrifying if we don't grasp how to comprehend someone else's point of view or how to reconcile after a fight. 5. Were my parents supportive of my ability to express myself? I've dealt with many individuals who don't even have the words to express how they feel. Obviously, this implies they have difficulties in their relationships since they lack the capacity to interact with others in an honest, true way. These customers were often reared by parents who responded negatively to any expression of extreme emotion, including excitement. They gave a clear message to their children. It's not proper to express yourself. Put it into action. You'll be doing some reflection today. You are not required to write a long diary entry or submit yourself to hours of examination, but you may get some important insights. Take 2 columns of paper and split them in half. Write the names of your 2 most significant caretakers from childhood at the top of each. Most individuals would say mom and dad, although you may have been cared for by another relative or even family friends. Consider their communication approaches. What did you take away from each of these people? Make a list of the beliefs they instilled in you. Do you wish to cling on to these ideas? Or is it time to let them go in exchange for new, healthier communication methods? Day 14. Understand how different generations communicate. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, as the old adage goes. There are countless of books and articles on the subject of sex differences and why men and women often misinterpret one another. But what about the age disparities? We don't often discuss the difficulties that come with connecting with persons from different generations. In this chapter, you'll learn more about these distinctions and how to tailor your approach to your audience. I'll concentrate on workplace communication. But this knowledge is also important for understanding generational disparities in general. Before we go, I'd want to emphasize that everyone has their own personality and preferred communication style. It's not a good idea to assume that simply because someone was born in a given age, they'll act in that manner. On the other hand, many academic scholars feel that our attitude to work and relationships is determined in part by the year we were born, the workplace generations you'll meet, and how to communicate with them. 1. Baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964. These employees set up a revolution. When women and ethnic minorities first joined the workforce, they gradually began to fill jobs that had previously been filled by white males. They are aggressive, competitive, and place a high emphasis on their profession as well as their family life. They grew up amid a period of societal transition and have a tendency to mistrust authority. This isn't to imply they can't work well with managers. It's just that they question power and feel that people in positions of authority should have to work for their position. They don't have time for managers who are aloof and condescending. They like to work for individuals who, rather than pulling rank, attempt to understand everyone's point of view before making a decision. Some people are wary of contemporary work practices like remote work and flexible hours. They are fairly conventional in this regard. Many people are workaholics who feel that job rivalry is beneficial and that corporate loyalty should be rewarded. They value cooperation and feel that meetings are a good use of their time. Communication pointers. A typical boomer will value a clear explanation of how their contribution affects the company's bottom line. They value consistent acknowledgement, especially if they have committed many years of their lives to an organization. As a result, they put a higher importance on titles than their younger counterparts. They grew up in a time when face-to-face contact was highly prized. Schedule an in-person appointment with a boomer if you have anything important to communicate to them. Most can use email and other contemporary technology, but they were trained to value face-to-face interactions. Regular performance assessments and continuing criticism are frequently unappealing to baby boomers. As far as they are concerned, they can perform their duties and welcome the more room to do so. It may be vital to convey to a baby boomer that even the most skilled individuals may benefit from continual input, and that frequent evaluations do not suggest that their bosses think they are inept. 2. Generation X, those born between 1965 and 1980. Gen Xers, who were more entrepreneurial than their baby boomer forefathers, grew up in somewhat precarious financial situations with less economic options. When compared to boomers, they are more inclined to prioritize work, life balance, and independence. They aren't really interested about keeping loyal to a company. They are, on average, more pessimistic about life and the job than their parents, and they lack the optimism and desire for change that typified the boomer generation. They are more at ease while utilizing current technologies. Generation Xers admire leaders that utilize a confrontational management style when it comes to power. They are more comfortable asking and answering uncomfortable questions in the workplace than boomers. They are less concerned with maintaining workplace harmony, since they are more inclined to transfer jobs and occupations rather than being loyal to one company for decades. They value personal independence more, and many wish to work for themselves. Communication pointers. Gen Xers value timely comments and constructive criticism, and like to get it on a frequent basis. They want to learn about their own talents and shortcomings and have fun designing their careers. They think that successful individuals continue to study throughout their lives. They are imaginative, often welcome change, and value the ability to express themselves. They may not value face-to-face communication as highly as earlier generations did, but their preferred manner is best defined as direct. It's better to go right to the point while speaking with a Gen Xer. They do not tolerate gatherings as well as the Boomer generation. 3. Generation E. Those born between 1981 and 1997. This generation, sometimes known as millennials, was the first to grow up with consistent access to computers and the internet. When compared to prior generations, they are more willing to multitask, participate in various initiatives, and have a flexible approach to work if the circumstance calls for it. For example, the typical Gen will like being reassigned to another department or being encouraged to use their abilities in a new field. They consider work as a path to personal fulfillment and believe it is appropriate to change professions and occupations often in order to achieve their pleasure. Members of this group are used to communicating digitally rather than in person. They want regular input and leaders who encourage people to provide comments at each step of a project. A Gen may be ambitious, but they feel that a healthy work-life balance is essential. Communication pointers. This group believes that emails, instant chats, and even social media are completely acceptable business communication tools. Writing an email instead of making a phone call is not a show of contempt for a Gen. It is just the standard for their generation. This group likewise prefers to get responses immediately. They will grow irritated if you keep them waiting. When dealing with a Gen, always play it straight. If you can't offer them feedback right away, give them a reasonable time limit and stick to it. They are not entitled by nature. They have just grown up in a society where knowledge is accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are entirely capable of respecting authority and adhering to workplace regulations, but they will want to know how and why choices are made. 4. Generation Z, born after 1998. These individuals have grown up during an era of growing social justice concepts and movements, and they put a higher priority on inclusive communication. For example, they are deeply committed to transgender rights, combating workplace sexism, and other social justice concerns such as racism and wealth inequality. They have grown up in a digital society and are at ease with the concept of working remotely, online, and for a varied variety of customers and enterprises. They are unlikely to stay with the same boss for an extended amount of time. Generation Z is aware of the privacy and security dangers associated with technology. They like social media and cannot imagine living without cell phones, but they are well aware that anything you publish online is permanent. They are more aware of their professional alternatives than earlier generations due to greater globalization and simple access to information. They appreciate autonomy, innovation, and originality. They grew up during a period of economic downturn. Therefore, they are eager to earn a consistent paycheck. Communication pointers. Inclusive communication is a good concept no matter who you're talking to, but it's especially vital when interacting with Gen Zers. They are the most diversified workforce the United States has ever seen. More specifically, by 2020, more than half of all under 18s will be members of a minority ethnic group or race, and corporate communication practices must reflect this reality. Generation Zers are ready to learn and like being polled for their thoughts. They are comparable to millennials in many ways, but they are more inclined to value anonymous communication and to exercise more caution when maintaining their internet reputation. If the subject is very delicate, they may choose to meet in person so that no record of the chat is left online. Put it into action. Consider the folks you work with or have in your social circle who are of a different generation. Do you feel it comfortable with persons who are significantly older or younger than you? Choose someone from a different generation with whom you have previously failed to connect. After reading this chapter, do you believe that age disparities may be contributing to the problem? If this is the case, your objective for today is to attempt to relate to this individual in a fresh manner. Your future moves will be determined by the circumstances. Let me give you an example. Assume you're working on a project with 2 baby boomers and 1 Gen Xer. The boomers are content to meet every Monday, report on their progress, and then return the following week with an update. The Gen Xer, on the other hand, seems to believe that the organization isn't providing them with enough direction. Given that Gen Xers enjoy continual input, you may want to check in with them every couple of days instead. This would demonstrate respect for their chosen communication techniques and lead to more amicable work relationships.
Day 15. Master the art of communicating via email. Nowadays, almost everyone utilizes email and social media for both professional and personal reasons. It's simple, free, and leaves plenty freedom for creative expression. You must, however, exercise caution. Misinterpretation of text-based messaging might have disastrous repercussions. If you send emails on behalf of a corporation, you might be in a lot of trouble if they offend somebody. Here's an eye-opening statistic. We misinterpret the tone and meaning of emails we get up to 50% of the time. Worse, most of us think we can correctly decipher a sender's underlying message. This section will teach you how to get the tone just perfect every time. Here are the fundamental guidelines for creating great emails that convey your message. 1. If the other individual is in a position of authority, mirror their tone. If your employer begins and ends each meeting with a few formal remarks, you should do the same. If they begin to sign off with a simple yours or regards, feel free to follow suit. Otherwise, consider that formal business terminology should be used. 2. Make it simple for the receiver to clarify any issues raised. If you're contacting someone regarding a complicated topic or need to offer a lot of information, give them another way to come back to you. This is particularly critical if you're working on a deadline-driven paper or project. How can they contact you if there are any fresh developments? Make sure they have your phone number and email address. 3. Don't send out requests and don't go into a long list of bullet points. Keep emails short and to the point, but don't be overly formal. For example, don't send 1 or 2 line emails with a direct request or assertion like "I need this assignment completed today," or you will need to adjust your calendar to accommodate this end. If you are speaking to someone face to face, your tone of voice and body language may stand in for phrases like please and thank you. Unfortunately, when all you have is text on a screen, you must, literally, spell it out. Request-based emails make the receiver feel defensive, as if they were given an order by a strict drill sergeant. Even though you are the boss and your subordinate is obligated to obey your orders, making an attempt to sound amicable can enhance your relationship. Punctuation is also beneficial. Exclamation points indicate screaming, therefore use them only when expressing strong enthusiasm or outrage. There is a significant difference between saying "I'll see you on Friday" and saying "I'll see you this Friday." In addition, an email was sent stating, "Your work on that essential project may need improvement," and "Your work on that significant project could use improvement." Which version would you like to hear from your boss? 4. Limit the length of your subject line to a few words. If you can't come up with a short subject line, you may have attempted to cram too much information into one email. Consider the genuine aim of your communication and, if required, reword it. Every day, the typical business person receives over 100 emails. Make it simple for them to identify the essential aspects of your message. 5. Pretend they're reading the message over your shoulder. Whether you're not sure if you said anything wrong, reread the message while thinking they're in the room with you. Only click send if you're comfortable saying it to them face. It is conceivable to insult someone in front of witnesses, but the mail lasts forever. 6. Describe your attachments. If you must attach a document, be sure to provide a reference to it in the body of your email. Give your attachment a meaningful title that identifies it as a secure document that the receiver may access without danger. 7. Make use of a template. Some of us dislike writing, while others lack the time to produce a well-written letter. Why not collect a few templates and have them on hand? There are several free materials available online. For example, ThriveHive.com provides 13 small company templates. And the Muse. The Muse.com has assembled a collection of 27 pre-written templates that may be utilized in a variety of business circumstances. Why spend time working on a message's structure when others have already done the difficult lifting? You may also put together your own templates. If you've produced a really good email, why not remove the personal content and reuse the format in the future? You may also utilize emails sent to you by others for this reason. However, be certain that all identifying information is removed. 8. Include a hilarious disclaimer at the beginning or conclusion of the message. 271. If you're feeling particularly stressed, fatigued, or furious while composing an email and are concerned that the receiver will sense your negativity, add a brief disclaimer like, "I've had a stressful week, but rest assured that I'm genuinely looking forward to working with you." Or if I seem a little slow this morning, it's because I've only had 1 cup of coffee. 9. When feasible, conclude an email with "thank you" in advance. Given the importance of email as a business tool, it's not surprising that academics have spent a significant amount of effort determining the words and phrases that produce results. Boomerang, a firm that focuses in helping individuals manage their email and increase their productivity, conducted a research that examined over 350,000 emails. According to their results, the phrase "thank you" in advance elicited a response rate of 65%, outperforming all other frequent sign-offs. 10. Keep things simple. Unless you know the other person well, write in language that a 3rd grader might understand. If you like reading and writing, you may be surprised to learn that most individuals don't do much of either outside of work. Using simple language and short phrases also decreases the possibility of cross-cultural misunderstandings. 11. Avoid using emojis in professional situations. This should go without saying, but just in case it isn't, avoid using emoticons in official business emails. Save them for well-known coworkers and amusing talks with pals. GIFs and quirky effects on picture files are similarly affected. Put it into action. You'll almost certainly have to send an email today. Before you hit the send button, read it aloud. You may notice that the tone isn't quite correct and that it has to be rewritten.
Day 16. Stop putting yourself down. So you're dismissive of your own accomplishments? Do you tell people that you can't do X, I, or Z? Even if you've done it before, perhaps you even go so far as to constantly degrade yourself? Everyone has low confidence times, and no one goes through life without having some self-doubt. It's good to take a step back now and again to find areas for improvement. However, there is a great difference between being grounded and publicly beating oneself up. Today, you'll discover why talking oneself down is a poisonous communication habit that harms your relationships, happiness, and career prospects. Why do we criticize ourselves in the first place? There are a few causes for this. 1. We don't want to appear arrogant. This is the most important one. Some of us feel that self-criticism is a magical spell that prevents us from having a large ego. Unfortunately, there is a cost. When you whine about your personal shortcomings, you are being self-centered, and as a result, may come off as a monotonous person with a feeling of entitlement. Don't bombard everyone around you with unhelpful negativity that they don't want to hear. It's a waste of their valuable time. They will resent you for using their time and efforts. Alternatively, we may believe that downplaying our own successes would keep others from becoming envious of us, or that it will shield us from bullying. Unfortunately, many bright children are ridiculed at school for being nerds, and they learn to insult themselves first as a kind of self-protection. If you were one of those children, you may have carried this conduct into your employment and adult relationships. 2. Our parents or caregivers had similar behavior. I asked you a few days ago to consider your own communication history and the messages you got from the individuals who raised you. Children mimic their parents' behaviors. If they regularly undermine themselves, you may have grown up believing that this is a natural, typical way to act. 3. We are so afraid of failure that we would rather forewarn others of our incompetence. If we tell everyone how inexperienced and inept we are, they will not be shocked when we fail. We won't have to deal with their dissatisfaction, and we won't have to explain what went wrong. After all, they should have realized we weren't going to go very far. That is, at least the reasoning we use. In a strange way, it makes sense. The issue is that this kind of rhetoric has the potential to become self-fulfilling. When we are told that we cannot accomplish something, we begin to believe it. Ironically, by reminding everyone that we are inept and destined to failure, we are really hurting our prospects. 4. We have poor self-esteem or even clinical depression. If you have negative thoughts about yourself, this might be an indication that you need professional treatment to boost your self-esteem or overcome depression. If you can't seem to find any satisfaction in life, or if you spend a lot of time feeling useless, hopeless, or guilty, it's worth seeing a doctor. Let us now consider the effects of self-deprecation. 1. You make yourself feel even worse by doing the following. When you repeat the same message repeatedly, even if you are alone, your brain begins to believe it. A negative cycle is initiated. You could even start berating yourself for being so pessimistic. 2. You lose out on important opportunities. Your closest friends will know if your self-evaluations are correct, but new acquaintances and coworkers must depend on how you portray yourself when forming an opinion of you. If you tell them how bad you are, and how all your accomplishments were due to chance rather than hard effort and competence, they will believe you. What else are they meant to think when they don't know your personal history? Others, understandably, may be wary to form a connection, particularly in professional settings, with someone who has nothing to contribute. Mark D. White, a philosopher, argues that many of us maintain the delusion that others would see through the self-deprecation to the person underlying. We don't have to prove ourselves or be honest about our skills and faults in this illusion. Someone will miraculously recognize that we are a decent, competent person if we wait long enough. White speculates in Psychology Today that part of the issue stems from the fairy tale story we were fed as children. Consider Cinderella. She had a happy ending because her prince saw past her poor upbringing and modest demeanor. 3. Others will believe you are judging them. Do you ever fear that when you hear someone complaining about an absent friend or acquaintance, they will begin speaking negatively about you once your back is turned? This idea is true even if the person you are disparaging is yourself. A consistent stream of self-deprecating statements conveys a clear message. I like criticizing others. I like criticizing others. I criticize myself, and I'm sure I'm evaluating you as well. Others will be hesitant to put their faith in you. How to break the habit of self-deprecation. The good news is that you can make the intentional choice to stop criticizing yourself. In summary, you must do 2 steps. Step 1. Learn how to self-monitor and catch statements before they leave your mouth. I won't deny that this is tough. If you've always been eager to point out your flaws, you'll struggle with this stage. I'm asking you to quit a lifelong habit here. Be kind with yourself. When you notice yourself making a self-deprecating comment, just make a mental note of it and go on. Step 2. Modify your thinking. Earlier in this section, I compiled a list of the most typical reasons why individuals criticize themselves. Which of the following examples struck a chord with you the most? Get to the bottom of the issue by digging a bit deeper. You may need to address some of the harmful ideas you are harboring. For example, if you feel that making self-deprecating comments prevents you from growing a large ego, tell yourself that there is plenty of evidence indicating the opposite. I'm sure you know at least one individual that doesn't belittle oneself, but stays grounded and realistic rather than arrogant. You have the option of modeling your approach after theirs. Problem solving may also give you the ability to change. Make a list of the things you don't like about yourself. If you have the ability to modify them, make a plan of action and carry it out. If you are unable to do so, it is time to focus on self-acceptance. Nobody is flawless, and expecting oneself to be perfect in every aspect of your life is a prescription for self-hatred and tragedy. Put it into action. Today, maintain a running note of how many times you cast yourself down or dismiss your own accomplishments while speaking with someone else. When you sum up the amount at the end of the day, you could be surprised. Don't be concerned. I've dealt with clients who made self-deprecating comments at least a dozen times a day. You can change if they can. Aim to cut that number in half the next day. Make it your objective the next day to not make any self-deprecating comments. Day 17. Ask someone for advice. We all like hearing about a self-made man or woman, yet successful individuals often seek assistance from others on their path to the top. Asking for guidance from someone who has been in your position before will save you a lot of time since you will learn from their errors and expertise. Not only that, but asking for guidance, if done correctly, may lead to positive professional and personal connections. People like assisting others, particularly when they can witness their mentor or protege flourish. Consider this. I'm sure you feel respected when someone approaches you for advice. A genuine request conveys a clear message. I believe you're precisely the perfect person to provide me the assistance I need, and I believe it is worth exposing myself if it means I may hear your advice. Assume you've identified someone who is in position to provide you with excellent guidance. For example, they may be someone well known in your profession or someone who has just started a successful enterprise. What should you keep in mind when you reach out? 1. Specify your goal. What exactly do you want to know? Before you pick up the phone or send an email, consider your final goal. Assume you've previously asked for guidance and gotten an answer. What would a successful outcome look like? If you don't know, you should think about what you want to do more carefully. 2. Provide some background. Don't humiliate yourself by asking for guidance right away. Even if you are writing to someone who is known for welcoming queries and offering assistance to others, add a couple of words that either remind them of how and where you met or explain why you are writing to them rather than anyone else. You should explain briefly why their advice is pertinent to your circumstance. According to entrepreneur Nick Reese, who gets hundreds of emails from company owners each month, those who detail their particular issue are more likely to obtain a useful response because he can personalize his answer to their inquiry. It may seem simple, but it seems that many individuals are unaware of how critical it is to supply him with some background information. Don't, on the other hand, overburden someone with information. Respect their time by telling them just what they need to know. 3. Tell them what you want to accomplish. It's not enough to state your issue if you don't also state what you wish to happen. I want to earn a lot of money, for example, is too broad. However, my objective is to make at least $10,000 from my website this year is much more specific. This includes stating your objectives clearly, which exposes you to criticism. There's a risk you'll hear something you don't want to hear. For example, suppose you want to leave your work and establish your own internet company as an affiliate marketer. You aim to be working full-time on your company within a year and make at least $25,000 in the first year. Your correspondent informs you that your objective is unachievable and that you will most likely need to work on your site for many years before leaving your job. They tell you that if you can outsource part of your responsibilities and raise your advertising budget, you will make quicker progress, but you lack the necessary finances. The input is discouraging, but at least you now have a more accurate picture of the situation and may change your objectives appropriately. I know having someone tell you that your aspirations are unattainable is embarrassing and terrible. But isn't it preferable to get things right now rather than learn the hard way? Set your pride aside and tell them the whole tale. 4. Inform them of what you've already done. Most likely, the person to whom you are writing has achieved success via hard work and initiative. If you tell them what you've previously attempted, they'll appreciate you more. Make your points clear. I've tried everything and nothing has worked. Isn't very enlightening. I've paid $5,000 on PC marketing, rebuilt my website 2 months ago, and employed a 25-page ebook as a lead magnet, yet my mailing list only has 2,000 members, on the other hand, offers a valuable summary and demonstrates that you aren't searching for a magic bullet. Furthermore, never ask someone for assistance with an issue when you can just Google the solution. 5. Make a compliment to them. You might conclude with a quick mention of how their work has already benefited you. Positive feedback is typically appreciated by everyone, no matter how well established they are. Don't go overboard. By the way, I enjoyed your recent post on putting together a marketing budget. Would enough. A little flattery may go a long way, but keep it genuine. 6. If you have calm connections, seek their advice. Do you know someone who has previously sought counsel from this individual, or, better yet, do you know them personally? If this is the case, ask them if there are any subjects or queries you should avoid. If they were successful in obtaining guidance from this individual, how did they word their request? You might even request to examine any emails they sent and use them as a template for your own message. 7. When it comes to tone and messaging style, follow their example. Examine your target's website or social media presence and let it inspire your writing style. If they often employ formal language and technical jargon, a businesslike approach is recommended. If they want to depict themselves as an ordinary, everyday man or gal, keeping your contact informal will provide greater results. If you are unsure what they would like, err on the side of caution and employ a conservative style. 8. Encourage them to follow up if you're sending an email. If you think you may run across this person again, perhaps at a conference or a social gathering, tell them you hope to see them there. This shows that you are eager to build a connection with them. Of course, if they respond, you should always write a nice message of appreciation. No one is obligated to offer you any of their time unless you have paid them for a coaching service or they are your employer. Always show your appreciation. Put it into action. Do you have an issue that is driving you insane? It may be either personal or professional, and it can be enormous or tiny. Today's assignment is to contact someone and get their advice. Remember, you don't have to accept anything if you don't believe it will work. Your goal is to practice creating a request and being bold enough to submit it. Day 18. Shut down nosy people. Humans are naturally inquisitive, but some individuals are particularly so. Take nosiness to its logical conclusion. If you are uncomfortable while someone asks you improper questions, today's workout is ideal for you. Most nosy individuals, I suppose, aren't even conscious that they are asking too many questions. Many inquiries, or that their inquiries are only as welcome as, at a backyard party, there were wasps. Fortunately, you can turn them off quickly. Here are a few strategies for deflecting someone who refuses to take the bait. Hint: obviously, you must choose the tactics that are most suited to your needs, circumstance, as well as the personality of the person involved. 1. If you feel they are bored, assign them a chore. Some inquisitive folks aren't concerned with your personal life. They just want to break up the routine of their day. You might respond to their probing queries regarding your weekend or whatever else seems to excite them so. You may try giving them something else to do if they are bored. Declare how relieved you are that they are no longer under your control. The to-do list is endless. Inform them that you are occupied and that, could they maybe give you a hand? As an example, consider, Assume you have a colleague who has a tendency of coming over to your desk. I'm here at my desk, droning on about nothing in particular. Here's how it works. You might tackle the scenario as follows. Coworker, hello, how are you doing? You. Oh no, I'm buried. Is there anything more I can do for you? Coworker. No, not at all. So, how did your weekend go? I went there. Fishing. I caught a 10-pounder. You. Do you have a mint? That's fantastic. Could I please ask you to... Could you please assist me with something? My to-do list is many pages long. Would you rather assist with photocopying or filing? If you seek for assistance every time they stop by, just for a minute, they will get irritated. Conversation. They'll get the message shortly, prior to using the proceeding. Approach. Be certain that doing so will not jeopardize your standing with the company is in risk. There are a few things to consider in terms of human resources. There are several scenarios in which this strategy would not be acceptable. Assume, for example, that the inquisitive coworker is your superior. You wouldn't ask your boss to make copies for you. Always, make use of common sense. 2. Turn it around. Although this isn't usually the case, I've seen it happen. I've found that inquisitive individuals like chatting about themselves. This is fantastic news since it allows you to utilize the flip it back feature. Technique. All you have to do is provide a non-committal response to their curious inquiry, then flip it around on them. They'll almost certainly start into a long personal conversation right away. Story. All you have to do is pretend to listen or cut the cord. Keep the dialogue brief and go on with your day. They will be punished if they refuse to give such personal information. Obliged to admit that their initial inquiry was incorrect. Improper. How can they respond if they don't want to? Can they fairly anticipate a response from someone else? If they do, if you pause, you might add, well, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Anyway, and then change the subject. 3. Bore them stiff. Maybe a subtle approach isn't for you. Manner. And you want to try a more daring strategy. Try the bore method. Their stiff method when you are confronted with an unwanted question. Answer it, but in such a dull manner that passes through the most interesting sections of a narrative. For example, supposing you've had a tough day at work and you want to curl up with a good book and a bottle of wine mail. As you go out to the mailbox, your obnoxious neighbor asks a few uncomfortable questions regarding your family life and inquires as to the explanation for your recent divorce. Instead of detailing your spouse's infidelity with your closest friend, you may offer a detailed explanation of the rumor's toxicity. As well as how social media is destroying face-to-face contact. Deliver all of these material in monotone without pausing. Breath. If you hesitate, they will interject with an inappropriate question. Clarifying inquiry, in short, you must be really uninteresting. You may have to use this method on a few of instances. Your inquisitive neighbor, on the other hand, will immediately discover their improper behavior. Questions will not be answered. The broken record approach is a variant on this concept. Give a quick response, then repeat it until they get the point and move on. Step back. Show no signs of annoyance, but provide the answer each time in precisely the same manner and with the same tone of voice as well as facial expression. 4. Why do you inquire? This inquiry has the potential to disarm nosy people. Folks. It causes people to stop, and the response they provide will be significant. Expose their true motivation. They might have a valid cause for doing so. Making their inquiry, in which case you will be able to respond question. On the other hand, they may scurry about for a half-hearted effort. Answer that should make it clear to you and everyone else. Otherwise, they have no business pushing their nose in when it is not desired. 5. Please don't take it personally. Remember that inquisitive individuals are dangerous. In general, I'm nosy. It's doubtful that they're picking on you. Out for special treatment. Keep an eye on how they interact with their colleagues or pals. If you have an excellent connection with their coworkers, you may even get together to share techniques in this case. You may get new insight into the psychology of the inquisitive individual, and this will put you in a better position to cope with their actions in the near future. 6. Use light mocking or quips if you have a good connection. Just because someone is nosy doesn't imply they aren't interested. Possess a sense of humor. Use this to your advantage if at all feasible. Advantage. A comment like, "You're way too curious for your own good." Own excellent at times. Presented with a nice grin. A simple chuckle might be enough to put an end to their enquiry. 7. Take it seriously if a nosy individual crosses the line into bullying. Seriously. Nosiness is frequently more of a bother than a pleasure. It may be detrimental, but it can also be malevolent. Anyone who asks intrusive or improper inquiries with the purpose of making you feel uneasy, anxious, or being intimidated is equivalent to being a bully. When pressed, they may claim that they just want to go to work, know you better, or that they are attempting to assist you. In this case, you must impose your own limits, while yet allowing them to exist. They are aware that their action will have repercussions. The optimal strategy here will be determined by the severity and context of the situation. Circumstance. Sometimes all it takes is telling someone that you will abandon the chat if you do not respect your privacy. It may be important to document their bullying conduct and then report it. File a complaint with your company's Human Resources Department. Everyone possesses the freedom to go about their daily lives without being watched. Put it into action. If you happen to come across a nosy individual today, take the advice in this article. Chapter and shut them off softly but firmly. If you get away from all the inquisitive people, plan ahead for the future time folks of today. We're all nosy. A coworker, a relative, a neighbor, or a friend, prepare yourself in advance. You won't be at a loss for words if you prepare ahead of time. Day 19. Put together a persuasive message so you have a profession that demands you to encourage, inspire, and teach others. Maybe you simply want to be more persuasive in general, or you want to wow others with your skill to put together a captivating message. Some of us are born with the ability to persuade others, but don't be concerned if you weren't. We can all learn to tap into our inner motivating speaker. Today, you will practice utilizing a tool that will improve the effectiveness of your presentations and ordinary conversations. I discovered a useful approach a few years ago that teaches you exactly how to achieve it. It's known as Monroe's Motivated Sequence, and it has a long and illustrious history. It was created in the 1930s by Alan H. Monroe at Purdue University and is a template that will motivate any audience to take action. Obviously, you will need to customize it for your individual scenario, but the essential framework will remain the same. I'll go through the stages first, followed by a thorough example. Step 1. Capture their attention. Always begin your argument with an emotional tale. A surprising statistic, or a fresh information to the audience. A quote or a rhetorical inquiry can also suffice. Step 2. Determine the necessity. Explain why the existing scenario is unacceptable to your viewers. Make it clear that things must change quickly. Describe the implications. What will happen if no one acts? In what ways does the issue influence your target audience? You may provide a few statistics here if they are relevant and intriguing. Step 3. Explain how you intend to meet the demand. What is the remedy now that you've recognized the issue? What alternatives do you have? What are the guiding principles of your approach? What specifically do you want the audience to do? Explain how you arrived at your ultimate choice. If you explored multiple possibilities before deciding on your preferred course of action. This level of openness will foster confidence. Step 4. Create a vision of the future. This stage is divided into 2 sections. To begin, you must persuade the audience to consider the implications of inaction. Use emotional language, but keep the emphasis on facts and data. The second step is to communicate your vision for a better future. How will the audience's life improve if they follow your instructions? Don't be afraid to spell it out. Include drawings or diagrams that will appeal to their emotions if you are delivering a presentation with slides or handouts. Step 5. Outline the following steps. Finally, inform the audience what they can or should do next. After all, it's pointless to pique their interest if you don't give them anything to do with it. Here's an illustration of how the sequence works. Assume you've been tasked with overseeing the execution of a workplace program. This campaign was created to inspire individuals to be more productive. As their manager, raising productivity by 10% will be part of your performance evaluation. You've been asked to deliver a presentation to your coworkers in order to persuade them to try out some new ideas. You might mention the following. Step 1 is to get their attention. Studies constantly reveal that a dangerously high proportion of non-management workers could care less about their company's success, and as a result, aren't working to their maximum ability. Step 2. Determine the necessity. If corporate leadership wants non-management staff to be passionately dedicated to the company's success, real incentives for lower-level employees should not be overlooked. Step 3. Explain how you intend to meet the demand. Step 4. Create a vision of the future. As a consequence, management has decided to implement weekly face-to-face check in meetings lasting no more than 10 minutes in order to deliver timely and meaningful performance feedback. It is critical to recognize that the weekly meetings will not always deliver good feedback that would be ineffective and ineffective and ineffective and ineffective, but that the communication will be intelligent, accurate, and relevant regardless of the result. It might contain praise for a work well done, as well as thoughts and recommendations for course correction. Step 5. Outline the following steps. Your boss will organize a standing meeting with you using your electronic calendar beginning the first week of next month. If you are unable to attend for whatever reason, please work with your manager to reschedule. To ensure uniformity across all divisions, all leadership will get regular training. Leadership will continue to meet on a regular basis to evaluate the performance of the new program and to discuss productivity metrics. If you want to enhance your presenting abilities, my book, Communication Skills, A Practical Guide to Improving Your Social Intelligence, Presentation, Persuasion, and Public Speaking, has a wealth of information. Put it into action. If you work in a career that requires you to write and give presentations, you'll have lots of opportunities to employ this strategy. But what if you don't have to persuade many people at work? Not a problem. With a few simple tweaks, this sequence may also be used at home. For example, suppose you want to purchase a cottage in the mountains for holidays, but your husband isn't interested. You may pique their interest by showing them photographs of cabins. Attention. Next, you may inform them that you need an affordable vacation solution that also serves as an investment. Need. Every year, and that acquiring a cabin would be one such answer, satisfying the need. You may assist them in envisioning how much fun a holiday in the mountains will be, visualizing the future. Finally, you may invite them to go cabin hunting with you. Action. Day 20. Improve your mediation skills. Even the most non-confrontational persons find themselves caught between two people on occasion. So, what should you do when confronted with two feuding coworkers, friends, or family members? This section contains a few helpful hints to assist you diffuse the situation while maintaining everyone's dignity. To begin, let's define what it means to be a mediator. A mediator's function, whether it's a formal position at work or a role you play in your social circle, is to serve as an impartial third person who assists two or more individuals in resolving a problem. The goal is to discover a solution that is acceptable to everyone or as close to it as is practically achievable. Mediation is useful when two individuals have attempted to solve their own difficulties but are unable to reach an agreement. It should not be confused with negotiation, which is a procedure in which the parties sit down and attempt to come to an agreement together. Here's how you can mediate. Step 1. Determine if you are a qualified applicant. All parties should be willing to participate in mediation, and the mediator should be as objective as possible. Furthermore, they should be able to facilitate a trade without interfering with it. Does this describe you? Be truthful. If you have a vested interest in the result or are prejudiced toward one side, you should not participate as a mediator. When dealing with a workplace disagreement, businesses often seek the services of an external expert. Impartiality is essential. Step 2. Establish the ground rules. A mediator is in charge of ensuring that conversations are conducted in a polite way. This implies that everyone must adhere to a set of norms. As a general guideline, the following are some decent places to start. No one is permitted to talk over another. Everyone will have an opportunity to present their side of the tale. Nobody is permitted to bring forth irrelevant concerns. Everyone must actively participate in the process. All sides will concentrate on a single subject at a time. Anyone engaged in the process may not be verbally abused, belittled, or harassed. The mediator will take notes on the major aspects of the talk, and copies will be made accessible to all parties after the meeting. Unless everyone agrees that the matter may be handled elsewhere, everything spoken during the mediation session will be kept totally secret. If you are mediating in a formal environment, you may want to publish the ground rules on paper and have everyone sign it to show that they understand how mediation works and are prepared to follow the guidelines. You should also specify what will happen if these criteria are broken. For example, if one party verbally attacks the other, the proceedings will be paused for 10 minutes to allow both parties to calm down. The offended person should then apologize before the meeting may proceed. It is critical that you follow the rules as they are written. Otherwise, the aggrieved party will lose trust in your capacity to function as a mediator. You should not take on the role if you are intimidated by any of the characters. Step 3. Create an agenda. Explain to everyone in attendance that mediation allows everyone the opportunity to share their thoughts and that it is critical that each party has the opportunity to speak. Inquire of both parties individually about the primary topics they wish to address throughout the process. Encourage all parties to keep the facts apart from their emotions. For example, although someone may want to vent about the pain caused by the other party, the underlying problem may be described as Party X feels disrespected by Party I. During this part of the procedure, you will need to use your finest listening abilities. The mediation will not be successful unless everyone feels appreciated. Active listening strategies such as paraphrase and appropriate prompting should be used. The act and practice of restating or rewording is known as paraphrasing. Appropriate prompting entails asking questions when one or both participants do not seem to be being heard or understood. Make a list of all the problems that have been mentioned. The next step is to prioritize these concerns so that they may be addressed in a logical sequence. It is hard to be prescriptive in this circumstance since each case is unique. The final agenda, however, should make sense to everyone in attendance. There should be some kind of flow to it. For example, you might all elect to start with the most current issue, or you may go through them chronologically. Step 4. Listen to all sides to have a better understanding of the nature of the disagreement. The next stage is to go over the agenda topics and invite each party to voice their issues. Make a list of the key points. If you lose track of what someone said or need clarification, ask them to repeat themselves. Someone who has been obsessed on a specific subject or who has grown overly emotional may often need more time than normal to compose their thoughts. If one party feels threatened by the other, you might advise that each side talk with you individually. If necessary, remind everyone of the ground rules. Everyone has to keep to the facts as much as possible and express their difficulties in an impartial, calm way. No one should go on furious rants, and verbal aggressiveness should not be permitted. If physical violence breaks out, the mediation process should be put on hold immediately. Physical abuse has no justification under any circumstances. It is not your responsibility to serve as a bouncer or referee. Order the offender to leave and, if necessary, contact the police. Step 5. Determine which concerns must be fixed. Make a list of all the specifics on which the parties agree, as well as any disagreements. Make this list as comprehensive as possible. When the parties are able to identify some common ground, they are more inclined to approach mediation with fresh vigor. Often, two persons will approach mediation with a sense of hopelessness. However, after they have cooled down and realized that they may have more in common than they initially thought, a psychological barrier may be broken down. This is a common occurrence in child custody proceedings. Unfortunately, parental disagreements regarding child custody arrangements are not uncommon. A family lawyer may propose mediation instead of a court proceeding in certain cases. Trained mediators often advise parents to highlight their point of shared agreement and interest their child's well-being. Regardless of their divorce and whatever grudges they may still have towards one another, most spouses would agree that their main goal is to provide their children the greatest possible life. Step 6. In charge of a brainstorming session. Your next responsibility is to assist everyone in breaking down the challenges into digestible bits and to establish a dynamic that promotes problem-solving rather than fighting. Remind everyone in attendance that they have some common goals. For example, they both want to settle the conflict and that they may take their time coming up with answers. You might urge everyone to brainstorm ideas as a group or to make a separate list. You may then integrate their suggestions into a single document or put them up side by side and ask them to consider the benefits and drawbacks of each. Remember that you must avoid from opining on which option is better. It is your responsibility to guarantee that all sides have the opportunity to present their ideas and to urge everyone to analyze every possible solution. Step 7. Encourage both parties to agree on concrete objectives. It may take some time, potentially a few hours, depending on the intricacy of the case and the personalities involved, but a few ideas will ultimately emerge. The last phase in the mediation process is to make sure that everyone establishes reasonable objectives that can be revisited later. To assist with this phase, use the standard SMART acronym. Keep in mind that objectives must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Invite the parties to create a formal agreement, an action plan, and then ask them to sign it. If one party rejects, it's necessary to take a step back and reconsider the ideas created throughout the negotiation process. Step 6. Mediation is not always effective. It necessitates that everyone concerned handle arguments with maturity. As you are aware, not everyone is capable of acting like a responsible adult. If your mediation efforts fail, try not to take it personally. Put it into action. If you chance to come into a disagreement at work or at home today, go ahead and practice your mediation skill by following the steps outlined above. If not, you may perform the activity below to observe how the process works in practice. Consider the last time you observed a heated fight or disagreement. For example, two of your colleagues may have argued on the best approach to proceed with a project and neither was willing to back down. How would the event have played out if you could go back in time and serve as a mediator? Consider at least two potential solutions that the opposing parties may have adopted. Day 21. Drop the cliches. We'll wrap off this communication challenge with a simple guideline that will instantly lift you above other speakers. It's time to get rid of the cliches in your regular speech. What's the harm in a cliche? Nothing in one sense. Smooth as silk. Actions speak louder than words. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and it's not rocket science, are all popular expressions. He's not a happy bunny, and it's a tall order, aren't insulting. However, I would still advise you to stop taking them. The problem with cliches is that they have been overused to the point that they no longer deliver the desired impact, even if the cliche is actually accurate. It's only filler for a discussion. Your message will be understood by the person to whom you are speaking, but it will be ineffective. They've previously heard hundreds of times the exact same phrases. What is the solution? Take them out. You may notice a gap if you utilize a lot of cliches. What should you do in its place? This is where you may have some fun by inventing your own alternatives. Assume you have the habit of stating, "The grass is always greener on the other side." You might play about with the nouns and verbs to come up with your own variation. For example, the apples usually look juicier on the other side of the orchard, don't they? As you are aware, having a large vocabulary makes you appear intelligent and engaging. Getting rid of cliches compels you to use a broader variety of words, which gives listeners the impression that you are a creative thinker. If you can come up with your own funny quips and sayings, that's even better. These regulations also apply to written communications. People tend to skip through cliches. It's difficult enough to capture someone's attention these days. Don't waste it by cramming your communications with outdated metaphors or similes. Remove them completely. This clears the way for something more inventive. If you often use cliches in your speeches, you may want assistance in overcoming the habit. We all have our own language quirks, and our family and friends are more likely to notice them than we are. Be courageous and ask someone you trust whether you keep using the same words and phrases. As long as you can persuade them that you will not take offense, they will have a handful of instances to give. Put it into action. Today you have 2 exercises to perform. Exercise: I keep an eye out for cliches in your speech. Before you use one, try to catch yourself. Make a note of what you might have said instead if it's too late. You should also be on the lookout for cliches in other people's speech and writing. One bit of advice: don't call attention to it. They're not going to thank you for it. Exercise, i.e., create 3 of your own cliché replacements. Begin with creating your own version of the adage. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. What doesn't knock you down just helps you stand stronger. I like to remark, the meaning is similar, but it is a variation on the original term. When you employ your own version, it captures the interest of your audience. Conclusion. Congratulations! You finished the 21-day challenge, and your communication abilities are greater than ever. I hope you had a good time and learned something new about yourself along the road. Other individuals will have begun to notice the change as well. It makes no difference whether you are a social butterfly, an introvert, or somewhere in between. You will see results if you put in the effort. Anyone may learn to be a social success and get the rewards of good communication skills. May your efforts be rewarded for many years to come.